Alright everyone, we start off today with a whole slurry of economic news, partially tied to Ukraine, partially Ukraine and Russia sanctions are being used as an excuse, as we'll see with some of these things. First, I would like to point out that Lindsey Graham is still insane. Link in the description, archived of course. There's 3 links there, by the way, to follow. Basically insinuating that some Russian should kill Putin. Now, think what you will about Putin. I have a feeling that would not deflame the situation. I have a feeling that that would make the situation worse, because then the Russians would go in, slaughter a bunch of Ukrainians, totally hardline the West, probably going after fuel. Again, you've already got huge concerns regarding that, so that's a crazy idea. But I mean, Lindsey Graham was the lover of John McCain, and I do believe that there was a dynamic that goes beyond the mythical idea of a bromance between them. Mostly McCain fucking Lindsey Graham backwards because he had dirt on him or something. Because of course Lindsey Graham may, at a time when it would have been very bad to have been LGBT in politics, is clearly a closeted individual. We've also got to talk about multiple pieces of disinfo here. We have a huge amount of disinfo from the legacy media, again, link in the description, with regards to the situation. You had, for example, claims the other day that a nuclear plant was ready to melt down, and of course that turned out not to be the case. Fog of war and confusion is part of this. It's mostly for independent commentators. Generally speaking, if they're wrong, there's no malice intended. In other cases, it's outright fucking propaganda. We're seeing it from all sides. Everyone's a fucking goddamn opportunist within politics, and it's fucking horse shit. We've also got to talk about George Takei. You know, he used to be relevant, but he's still worth a huge amount of money. Apparently, his estimated net worth is $14 million. Telling people, well, we can deal with higher prices. It's our patriotic duty to punish the Russians and defend democracy. I'm thinking, how out of touch, number one. Number two, what a false claim of patriotism. And then I see people, like apparently there was a pub in Canada that's changed the name of Poutine because it sounds too much like Putin. I think it's funny to have a food that's basically, you know, stupid gravy. Sorry, Canadians, but it's not very palatable looking. Be so similar to a world leader that you don't like. It reminds me a lot of the post-Iraq invasion. Remember when people were dumping French wine, and I pointed out a few days ago that's basically like they're banning Russian vodka right now. It's basically similar. This is the same sort of freakish, hyperbolic, knee-jerk reaction that only results from being cascaded with propaganda. Only people, the average person is just a lemming. They don't really get offended by things until the legacy media tells them they should be offended and that others are. They're not really worried about Russia. They can't even find Ukraine on a map, but it's very, very important that we pay more taxes, sell more bombs, and ban a lot of people. A lot of censorship, of course, of competitors of the legacy media, often, because of this invasion. Again, even though they know absolutely nothing about it. That doesn't lessen the significance of it, it's just that they don't know why it's significant, and their reactions make no fucking goddamn sense. Now, before I get into the main part of this video, because it does tie into all of those things that are happening, keep in mind that down below there will be a pinned comment if you're watching this video on YouTube. There are links to other video hosting sites that I use down there. Keep in mind that I make exclusive content every single day. Today, however, I do have another literary update. Amazon's finally working again. I even got the templates working. So huzzah, I will be able to plow through the last 10 roughly works that I've got left in double quick time. Possibly by the end of this month, the editing project will be all done. I'm psyched. So there will only be one new tech exclusive today, because non-political material, of course, YouTube welcomes it, has no problem with it. Good way to advertise the book to some extra thousands of people, so I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. Anyway, here's the question. Are we headed for another Great Depression? Unfortunately, it is possible. I can't tell you that it is certain, and I can tell you, much like I warned people at the outset of the COVID paranoia that we had years ago, I told people, you know, as we go into the first wave of lockdowns, this was, you know, again, this 2 years ago at this point, almost to the day, I think at this point, that there would be shortages, not because people needed to buy all the toilet paper, but they perceived it as they would need to. And what I said is that if you're worried that other people will panic, you should act accordingly. If you you realize the masses are stupid by and large. Most people are dumb. I hate to tell you this, but the majority of the world's population is stupid. This is why democracy is not a virtue. This is why a very, very constitutional republic is a good thing. We should probably beef up our constitution, the United States, and based on what Europe has been doing, they should probably beef up theirs as well. I'm not sure what legal capabilities they have under the actual EU status as nation states, but they can at least make an attempt, or they can leave the EU. Be funny, Ukraine eventually, what's left of it after Putin devours the rest of the country, they and then Georgians, they join the EU, and the Turks, and then like half of Western Europe leaves, and it's like completely foobar at that point. Here's the thing. The problem right now is that Russia has several important economic advantages over the world. And again, they'd be hesitant to do this because if a depression happens, it affects them too. Everyone gets affected in the world. This is why I said that while eventually weaning ourselves off China, trying to rebalance trade, trying to remove investments, and weakening China economically, if you do it all at once, it will cause a depression. It'll affect the West as well. The longer you don't do anything about it, of course, the more painful it gets when it eventually becomes necessary as opposed to simply proper, but you have to do it incrementally. Russia is a major exporter of several important things. Fertilizer, which is already being impacted, there are runs on that at the moment, and fuel. Both of these things are desperately important if you want to feed your fucking population. I would point out another interesting problem. Look at it this way. Let's say that the price of US and European food exports, I know most European countries are not food solvent. I think, actually the Netherlands, I think is only one of two. I think France is the other one. The United States and Canada as well, enormous grain exporters. They also grow a huge number of root crops. For instance, sugar beets. All that sugar that you get, it doesn't come from sugar cane, which is probably the mythology that you thought. It comes from beets. Highly sugary, huge roots, and grow as big as fucking basketballs. They get turned into sugar. The price of all of these goods, grain, sugar, all of the corn, all of the livestock that you feed the corn to, corn-fed fucking cows and pigs and shit, chicken feed, seeds, sunflowers. Ukraine is a major exporter of sunflowers too, so you might want to get a bag of seeds for this summer in the northern hemisphere and get a oil press. I'm just saying that it could be pretty lucrative. That's not a joke. You can get a manual oil press, so you can get the used ones like off fucking eBay. The manual oil press from the 50s. They'll still work. You just got to know how to maintain it. Here's the problem. You have a ripple effect. It's not just, hey, gas prices are up. I know in Massachusetts, someone was claiming the other day, prices up in 48 hours, 40 cents in 2 days. 40 fucking goddamn cents. Prices way back up to where they were at the heights before. So all of the economic progress, if you can call it that, that's been made as lockdowns wane, we're right back to square one in the course of less than a month. To be clear about how bad the situation is, it's bad. So fuel prices go up and fertilizer prices go up. Farmers will still be able to obtain it unless Russia shuts off the spigot entirely, which would cause absolute fucking chaos. But they're going to pay a lot more. Who ends up paying a lot more? Everybody! The farmers pay more. They have to pass some of that on to consumers. The consumers pay more. What's one major consumer of U.S. grain and sugar and pork, especially beef to an extent, etc., etc.? China. So then, all of a sudden, the Chinese have to pay more for food because you have to feed your population. We got 2 fucking billion people and only a third of your country is particularly arable and set up for agriculture. You're going to have some problems. So all of a sudden, the Chinese are paying a lot more. Well, China can manipulate its economy for a while to keep that going and keep the prices artificially low. Ultimately, though, they either fuck their economy backwards, like Lindsey Graham and John McCain in the bedroom, or conversely, they pass that price on economically. Well, when people are paying more there, all the other goods and services will cost more too because of what they have to do to their currency in order to cover the differential. Which means that those Chinese components then, as they get imported to the US, they cost more too. This causes all manufactured goods to rise in price. You see where I'm going here? You think the price rises have been bad so far? Here's the disinfo aspect. This is why this is tied in with Ukraine more directly than just Russians' decision-making. Here's the problem. We have disinfo right now. Takei, again, link in the description, Biden, Kamala, others, are setting up, as I predicted days ago, to try to blame lingering economic damage on Russia sanctions. Only a portion of this is anything to do with Russia or Ukraine with regards to anything other than direct fuel costs at this point and fertilizer. That cost will be passed on. There will be an ever-diluted ripple effect. It'll raise prices around the world, but they were already going there. Here's the problem. You already had a year of severe economic damage due to lockdownerism. You had, the demand came back, but the supply can't keep pace. The supply is too low. Shipping had a problem, of course, because of port closures and restrictions. And then you have mass spending, Bidenomics. Not just in the United States, by the way. Europe did the same thing. They shelled out huge amounts of funny money that they printed up in order to cover the cost of basically putting half the population on the dole. That has inflated the currency. It has caused massive price increases. What does the U.S. government decide to do? If you look at like Elizabeth Warren, well, we're going to look into these corporations and see if they're price gouging. Oh my God, your profits went up 20%. That's obscene. That's terrible. Not if you denominate them in the newly devalued currency. Then all of a sudden, everything just kept pace with the necessity of raising the prices because the money is worth less. Okay, instead, once you adjust it, maybe you made 1.5% more year over year. That's not an obscene increase in your income. And by the way, because the currency keeps depreciating, it doesn't fucking matter that you made more. Technically, you made less. If you go off paper, if you use a little bit of ingenuity in your mathematics and you understand anything whatsoever about ratios and interest in these things, if you have a basic understanding of economics, as in you're not a leftoid, you don't even have to be particularly mathematically smart. I stalled out at the pre-calc level. But I can tell you that things are not going well economically. As to whether this causes a depression, we can't say. Here's what I would tell you, though. I think you should prepare. If you have land, throw in a few extra rows. If you don't know how to garden, now's a really good fucking time to learn. Now's a good time to learn another skill. The same advice that I gave you before. It's good to stock up. You have a good pantry. Maybe half your basement is filled with nothing but cans of food. Please remember to get a can opener or two. Toilet paper obviously applies. Something that I neglected to mention the last time that people have to shit. I figured that was a no-brainer. Beyond that, though, the best way you can prepare is to prepare yourself. Another skill. Another source of income. You know, you're poor. You're like, well, yeah, I mean, my mom's trailer park, she has some land, but I don't have any money for farming it. Yes, you do. It's called work a fucking goddamn couple of extra shifts and buy the equipment. Maybe you can get together with other people in that trailer park and you can do a timeshare literally with the shovel and the rototiller and shit like that. You know, it makes it more efficient. It's not like every person needs their own fucking shovel. I'm not talking about opening an entire 10-acre farm. We're talking about growing a few of the things that you really like that you know might not be in the store or might cost an inordinate amount. You can raise chickens. Let's say that you've moved up in life. You're not in the trailer park. You've moved on to the middle class. If you don't have a housing authority bitching at you, you can probably have some chickens. Make sure to have them fenced off because raccoons and the neighbor's dogs and so forth can be a problem. Might want to install something to keep burglars away because those chickens might be worth their weight in gold. Those eggs will be fucking valuable when they run out at the store because nobody can fucking afford them and somebody keeps hoarding them because all the suppliers dried up. It will cause economic chaos. Depression level? We can't be sure. Am I looking at a situation where we're already basically in a recession? Yeah, basically. Stagflation is here, officially. Biden crows about the jobs report he has nothing to do with, not mentioning to people, hey, most of those are really crummy, low-wage jobs. And by the way, the wages for those jobs are barely even worth working at those jobs at this point. Yeah, $15 an hour minimum wage. A lot of money $15 is. Maybe it'll buy you a hot dog. That's about all. Peace out.